And so the basic modes of the mask, the add and transfer and subtract. After that we have few more mask options, and if you expand options for masks, then you get all these options, which is mask path, mask feather, mask opacity, and mask expansion. What they does is, and you can see all the options are keyable. So let's add a key in mask path, and let's say this character is moving. I don't know, I mean, let's delete the mask too, we don't need that. So let's say here I need to change the mask. This thing can be done with the shapes also. The creating mask and shapes are basically the very basic concept. So uh, if I select this point and now I move it, and let's say I am going to make some more changes like this, and I'm going to make like this, and whatever it is, you can see another keyframe have been created for whatever changes I have made. So now what is going to happen is basically the mask shape is going to change like this. And by the way, in this topic, another thing I remember, let's create a solid, and let's create a solid, white solid, and let's create some lines on it. So let's say, and this I'm not gonna close it, and I'm going to go select the selection tool, and there is an effect called stroke. And if I add this effect on this white solid, and let's change the color to black, then we can actually create this kind of stroke, and which is completely animatable, so you can use it for animation also. Okay, the stroke is not only animatable, there's couple of very interesting thing that we have. Let's animate this stroke at first. So I'm going to go to the mask option, mask path. Shortcut is M for the mask. I'm coming to the shortcut. Now I've created a shortcut here. The second shortcut I'm going to create, sorry, I'm going to create here, and I'm going to make some changes and few options that we have. By the way, we haven't covered the effect part of After Effects yet, so I'm going to come all the necessary effects later on. So you can see we have this option for the 100 to, so let's turn off the percentage for the start and end. So that means we can create this kind of right on type of effect in on this. So at the start maybe it's going to be 0, the end, and at the end of the animation it's going to be 100, and you can do the same thing for the start also. So if you, okay, so now it's going to look something like this. So I know it's good or bad, but it was when it was created, so it was, the shape was like this, and at the same time this thing is happening. And another thing is we can add some spacing like this. So let's say the spacing option, if we decrease it, you can see we are going to get these dots. We can change the thickness like this. Okay, and we can make this by default it's on original image, which is the white solid. Right now we can make it on transparent, then it's actually going to appear on the appear on a transparent layer, and we can change the fill color to anything we want, and we can add effects on it also. Let's if you want to add some glow or blur or whatever it is, and this is basically it. And so let's go back to where we were. And let's see all the masks options we have. The first one is mask path, and the second one is mask feather, which is basically going to feather the edges. That means we are going to get smoother edges like this. And another thing is we have a dedicated feather tool. Let's see what it does. So under this pen menu, if you select and hold it, we can see all the basic options we get for the adding and deleting vertex and to get sharp corner. Then we have feather tool. If we select it and if we turn on the mask, then what we can see, if we select, you can see the plus icon appears. So that means if we select on the mask and drag, we get this region for inner part and the outer part of the mask. That means for this way we can determine the edge feather. And what is the difference? If we add edge feather from here, that will be same for the all the region of the mask. So that is like a basic average value of feather. But with this option we can actually expand the feather like this in one portion, and in another portion we can make it sharp like this. So we have this control. Okay, so this is the dedicated feather tool. And then we have mask opacity. If we turn off mask opacity, then it will actually disappear the whatever in is containing the mask. And then we have mask expansion, another very useful tool. By using this expansion in negative and positive value, you can shrink, either choke or shrink this mask area, or you can expand the area like this. Okay, and so this is very basic use of mask tool. And all the shortcuts, if you press M, then you will get mask path, and if you press F, then you will get the feather option. You can add feather on top of this feathering, then it will add a global feathering type of thing on all over this mask. And to delete a mask, you can just select and hit delete. Then all the keyframe and all these options are okay. Sorry, I haven't. Let's go to the select tool and select mask on and delete. Okay, so this is the very basics of masking. And there is another way to mask a layer, which is called the matte layer. I'm going to come to that later on, and because that is not very basic masking thing. When we are going to talk about different compositing and effects, then we are going to see that. Then come to shape layer. Can we? Yes, that's what I have shown. So if you, for the mask path, this is basically what is happening. So double click on a mask to get the entire selection, and then change it. That is a very basic thing. That's the shape changing thing is happening there. Okay. Then let's go to the shape tool. So if you don't select any layer and then use the same tool, then it creates shape tool. You can see then we have when you select the shape tool, all these options get activated: fill, stroke, width, and all this thing. And if we select this layer, then all these options are disappeared. That means to get a shape tool, either you can create a shape layer from here, new shape layer, or simply just select these shape tools and create a shape layer like this. And in the shape layer, you can see this option contains this option comes, and under that we get the shapes, which is ellipse 1, and then we get the same mask path option. If we expand that, then we get the mask position, and you can see the layer actually not moving because the anchor point is in the same position. And then we have mask position and mask size. Then we have stroke option. From there you can actually change the this is basically to dedicatedly to create for designing, for motion graphics. Those are the cases you mostly are going to create shapes, and for animation also, of course. And so from here you can change the shape width, and let's turn off the mask and change the shape color, stroke color. And then we can check all the other options, the transparency and the very basic thing. and also from here you can actually add dashes. That means you can create things like this. So let's bring down the width, and let's say I want to make it round cap, and then I'm going to add distance of the dashes, and all you can see all these values are animatable, so you can animate them, you can make offset them, and whatever shape it is, it's going to, let's create another shape which is going to be something different. And you can do the same thing with this stroke on. You can see the shape 1 have been created, and from there also we can add dashes, and you can do the basically same thing, and the same thing is going to happen to this shape also. And then we have fill options. You can change the blending mode for a particular shape, for shapes fill, and then we can change it to any color we need, and opacity, and then transform ellipse. We have all the skewing and position, anchor point, all these options for this particular shape. We have that, and after that this transform is basically is for the entire layer. And on top of this thing, let's actually delete this shape layer and create, let's see what we have in this star or polygon, and these are basically almost the same thing. So I'm going to create a shape like this. When you are creating, if we press space, then you can move it, and if we press shift, it will be it's not gonna rotate. And another option, I haven't left the selection yet, so now if I press up and down arrow, let's say press up, then what is going to happen, it's going to add this what is called heads or edges, up and down keyboard mein, and then you can create it. And if you press the left and right, then let's see what is going to happen. So I'm going to make it smaller, and I'm going to press the right arrow, and now it's going to be it's continuously gonna grow like this. And of course these values are animatable, so all these values are there somewhere in the content. And let's go to the opposite direction by pressing the left arrow. Like fungus spreading type of snowflake type of thing, or a psychedelic effect type of thing you can do. So let's go to and let's see where this option is. So let's expand this option, the polystar, and for polystar, if you expand these options, then we get this inner radius and outer radius. This is basically this option, and so let's make it 0 and again 0. Okay, no, this option probably. Okay. Oh, it's also so you can see how easy it is to create some interesting shapes from here. And on top of all these things we have, so after Effects cannot put all the options together in a particular this area contains, so that's why we have this option which is called add. So if you click on this option, you get all these options. So you can, if you need all of this, you can add them. So let's say if you want to add another fill or stroke or basic gradient, all these things are there. But then we have zigzag, and if we add that, then what is going to happen is, let's actually expand the size of this thing. So polystar, make it a little bit, what is the size transformation, so size, and into the zigzag we can add zigzags like this, and and the zigzags can be, the edges of the zigzags can be smooth, and the same thing. And so let's delete it, we don't need zigzag. So we are going to add Vogel transform. Vogel transform is basically the transform Vogel, that same thing, we can do it later on. But let's see Vogel path. So if we add Vogel path, and then again we get this thing, but the thing is, the corner I'm going to again make it smoother, and you can see the size, we can change the size like this, and the details option on these things. The amazing thing is, if you now just press space or 0 for preview, you can see it's automatic on a Vogel for you. And then you can actually change the speed, you can change the size, and you can change the, let's say, increase the details, it's gonna be much more denser. You can change the wiggle speed, let's make it 10. And then actually we can use multiple number of this kind of effects on top of another, okay? So but that's your creativity, how you want to add all of these things. So I'm just showing you one or two very basic things, but you can add all of these things together. Let's say we have this thing which is called twist, and now we can just twist it like this. And now if I change the center of the twist, then it's a part. So let's say that we are going to add the wiggle also on this thing. So the wiggle path, and then on, let's say I'm going to add some, and this twist center like this. I'm going to change the center, maybe from here to here. And in the wiggle path I'm going to make it smoother, and maybe increase this thing, maybe decrease this thing, maybe change the stroke path, stroke size, and obviously all of these values are animatable. So now, I mean, it's nothing, but you're getting the idea, right? So this is how you can, let's say you need some you need a character where you need to add this kind of let's delete the twist, wiggly type of lines. Then you can just decrease the size of this thing to 1. Sorry, 1 is high, or it's not size, the details to, let's say, 0.5. okay, now done the details, the size, there should be, okay, to increase the details and change the size to 5. Then we are going to get this kind of, I mean, and then I'm going to increase the value wiggle per second to 10. No, this is not that bad. And then, okay, another thing that I want to show you guys, that I just remember right now, which is, let's create another line. Let's create another solid layer. Let's create another solid layer. Solid, it's gonna be a white solid, and again I'm going to create a line. Let's create few lines. So I'm going to click somewhere outside of this thing, and again I'm going to create another line. And on this layer, if I add the stroke effect again, and let's hide the mask path, and I'm going to make it black, and I'm going to apply it to all the layers, all the masks, and I'm going to expand it. And then I'm going to add something called Turbulence Noise, and turbulence displacement. And of course this thing can do this kind of movement, but that's not the thing I want to show you guys. Of course we can add some wiggle like this. I'm going to come to these things later, how you can use it on your, if you need to add on your characters. So what I'm going to do is, basically I'm going to change the size to, let's say, 5, and amount is something higher like this. The lines might be a little bit thinner, Then I'm going to change the thickness to complexity to 10, all the way 10, and then again I'm going to make it a little bit thinner, and the amount I'm going to decrease it. So that's how, with a very simple smooth line, you can get this kind of, you know uh, you know what is it called, artificial type of look. Okay, frames with the line render that you are gonna have. Yes, we can do that. Hmm. So this is it. If you have all these things separately, then we can do anything. For anything, like you can do any kind of distortion, any kind of effect, then we have all that possibility. Jittery lines you can do, you can add. And this thing are animatable, so it can jitter. Okay, and the jitter, by what I have done is the jitter size, I have cranked down the jitter size. If I make it, let's say 20, then it will be like this. We may not gonna need it, but yes. So this is one option that I needed to show you. So let's delete it. And we're talking about the shape layer. So that was uh, very basics of shape layer. You can add different contents on shape layer. So I will recommend you guys to do explore that. And today and the next day I will you are gonna make an animation by using the shape layer and the text, or the shape layer and whatever you want basically, but there should be some, keyframe animation. Okay, and after that, only after that, I'm going to move on to parenting and effects and other the stuffs. Okay, matte layer, stabilization, track motion, 3D layer, all these things. Okay, so let's stop the recording.